Good day, everyone. My name is Anef Joyce, and I'm here to talk about the disposition of women and men in patriarchy. This literary research analysis used gender studies in examining the piece of literature. Specifically, feminism and masculine studies were utilized. To start with, for the introduction, men and women have coexisted since the dawn of mankind. And in today's society, men and women are considered equals. But this hasn't always been the case. Male domination was so prevalent that it was not even acknowledged as a concept. The assumption that male domination was natural was self fulfilling because those who produced the laws, poetry, religious books, philosophy, history, medical treatises, and scientific works were, for the most part, men working for men's advantage. For so long, women have battled their place and rights in the society to be as equal to men. And right now, modern women are in the phase where they are reaping the labor of their predecessors. But as for those who have lived in a male dominated culture, this question arises. How did these women grapple in a patriarchal culture? And as for men, how heavy is the weight that they have to bear in order to fulfill the society's expectation of being a man? This study's main objective was to explore the prevailing gender roles present in the Chinese culture that was set in the real life story of Adeline Yen Mah. Specifically, it examined the differing roles of women in the traditional Chinese household, considering hierarchy and authority, and women's submission in a society led by men. Lastly, it also studied the male characters in the literary work, examining their actions and roles in relation to the concept of being a man. This study is qualitative in nature, wherein it is an iterative process in which the scientific community gains better knowledge by making new meaningful distinctions as they come closer to the phenomenon being examined. Textual analysis was used in the study. Allen 2017 cited that it is a means of gaining knowledge on how people make sense of and transmit life and life experiences by deciphering the words, symbols, and or visuals found in the text. Through textual analysis, this paper examined the characters in the novel and uncovered what was being communicated by looking into their actions and words. Specifically, this study utilized gender studies in examining or in analyzing the literary text, focusing mainly on the role of men and women in the culture present in the text. The source of data was the memoir the memoir of Chinese Cinderella. It depicts the true story of Adeline Yen Mah, a Chinese American author and physician. This memoir presented her experiences of being an unwanted child and unloved by the family she grew into. The Chinese Cinderella was first published in 1999 after the release of Yen Mah's autobiography, Falling Leaves, in 1997. Chinese Cinderella received an award from the Children's Literature Council of Southern California in 2000 for compelling autobiography and Lamplighter's Award from National Christian School Association in June 2002 for contribution to exceptional children's literature. The study relied on the analysis of the role of men and women in the text. Joel 2014 cited in her article that gender theory is the study of masculine, feminine, and or queer behavior in any particular setting, community, civilization, or field of study. In this study, the researcher focused the analysis on the role of women in society as portrayed by the real-life characters in the text, as well as how the male characters fit into the society's molded figure of being a man. Feminism, which is concerned with how literature and other cultural creations reinforces or undermines women's economic, political, social, and psychological oppression. Masculinity studies were also used in the study as it focuses on the collection of social actions and cultural representations linked with maleness. In the traditional family culture, men and women have distinct roles to fill. Aside from roles, family hierarchy is also essential in organizing the authority that a family member should have. This part of the study highlighted the varied roles of women in the Chinese family, showcasing the importance of marriage and bearing children. In the memoir, it exhibited the absolute authority that the stepmother Niang had in the family. As based on the Chinese culture, the wife is regarded as the master of the house and overseers of the family finances. The stepmother's appointment as master of the house after the death of grandmother Nainai was mainly because of the Chinese tradition where married women who have borne a son will be given power, authority, and importance in the family. As the master of the house, the wife has the authority to make rules that even her in laws should follow. Thus, the wife controls everything. In Chinese culture, the proverb, spare the rod, spoil the child, is vital that demonstrate how the father must use his power to discipline a disobedient member, not only to reprimand them but also to keep the home in peace and order. This is not only applicable to the father, but also to the master of the house, has the authority of disciplining their children, as the other family members who have no right in crossing the line in disagreeing with her. In the text, the authority of the wife expands in limiting the other family members in involving themselves in disciplining and taking care of their children. The stepmother's role as the master of the house gave her the utmost importance and authority in the family, while for the aunt, it was a quite different situation. Along with obligations, the wife's status in the family also increases. But for Aunt Baba, who's an old maid and living with her brother's family and old father, her authority and importance in the household is not much of a matter. Lee 2000 cited in her study that when a girl became a bride tradition in a traditional Chinese society, her obligations also grew. The major reason was to gratify her husband by giving him a son for his family. Chung Lee and Cousinets 2001 cited in their academic article that people in China may use the word Sheng Nu to characterize a social position if you are a female, educated, and unmarried by the age of 27. Sheng Nu simply means leftover women. This labeling of women is always present in the patriarchal culture of the Chinese, where women should be dependent on men. Based on these concepts of being a woman in Chinese, it sure was very hard for the character of Aunt Baba to get along with the society and culture that she was in. In Adeline Yen Mah's memoir, the aunt was perceived as caring and someone who only cares for her and her siblings. But despite the gentle personality of Aunt Baba, she was no exception to the strict patriarchal authority that runs the house. Despite being capable and of the right age, Aunt Baba still needs to ask permission from her brother, which is the acting head of the family, to work again in the bank, which suggests the power that men have over women. In China, wives who did not produce boys were not respected in the household, much alone in terms of property, rights, and human rights. The situation of Aunt Baba, wherein she has no say on such matters, only proves the existence of such worse treatment for unmarried and childless women. Aside from difference of women's hierarchy and authority, women's submission were also expected in a patriarchal culture. Since the Han Dynasty, Confucianism has been an official philosophy of the Chinese state. Some claim that the rise in the status of Confucianism is the primary cause of women's social status decrease. The big sister in the text was arranged marriage at an early age and married at 17 with a man that was years older than her. This could be attributed to the Chinese belief that women should be married before their mid or late 20s, and arranged marriage is a common practice in their culture. Zhang 2016 cited in his study that in Confucianism, in keeping with its patriarchal promotion, maintains that the most important job of women is to carry on the family line. This suggests that women were supposed to devote themselves or to devote their lives to their families, this allowing them to pursue higher education and career as it was being viewed as futile. In contrast, men were given the highest importance to get quality education and allowing them to venture into different things as they will be the one to continue the legacy of the family. In the text, the older brothers were sent to study abroad for higher education. Aside from lack of opportunity to pursue higher education, young women were also treated unfairly as they have no say in their future and education. In the text, Adeline was often sent to different places and schools without even asking her opinion, and she just needs to follow, suppressing their expression. Aside from early marriage and suppression of opinion, women in Chinese culture needs to prove their worth in their family in order to be recognized. In Adeline's case, where she was able to study in England and pursue higher education, she went through a lot of things in order to be recognized by her father that she is capable of bringing honor to their family. Through her hard work, Adeline was granted the recognition that she was looking or that she was longing for so long from her father, as well as her dream to pursue studies in England. But unlike her brothers, who were given the chance to pick the field that they want to study, Adeline was dictated by her father on what career to take, leaving her no choice but to agree. This situation is true in various ways, as women were supposed to follow the rules and expectations that the society have molded. Women were also expected to respect their older brothers as they are considered as second in command in the family. In Chinese families, the older male children also hold more privileges than females. The male in the family has the upper hand on his siblings, specifically the younger female siblings. In a male dominated society, women were expected to be submissive and act in accordance with what society dictates. This was explicitly shown in the memoir of Adeline Yen Mah, which mirrors what women have been going through all along. as patriarchy is not only existing in Chinese culture, but it has always been there in every culture and country around the world. As men were favored in patriarchy, they also have to bear a lot of weight on their shoulders. Traditionally, men are the head of the household. They have control every aspect of the family's life. In most cases, men would be the sole provider and were responsible for continuing family's bloodline. In the text, the father is the sole provider of the family, where he needs to ensure that all of the family's needs are being met. But aside from this responsibility, there are certain privileges that only men enjoy in a traditional Chinese family, and that is marriage. In traditional Chinese culture, it was reasonable for a husband to remarry if his first wife cannot bear him a son, let alone if his wife passed away. This is in contrast to widowed women. Sun 2018 found through his study that Chinese widows either suicide or have a life consigned to taking care of her deceased husband's parents. The privilege that men have in this instance is also manifested in the story. The real life story of Adeline Yen Mah presented one of the privileges of men. Okay, but aside from the advantages that men enjoy, there were also roles that they need to fulfill. And to conclude, in patriarchy, women have differing roles and authority in the household as indicated by having a husband and a son. Second, women were expected to be submissive and act in accordance with what the society have dictated. And lastly, in the Adamite patriarchy present in Chinese culture, men have certain privileges that were not applicable to women, such as higher education, authority over siblings, and the choice to remarry. And this is the end of my presentation, the disposition of women and men in patriarchy using gender studies, specifically feminism and masculinity studies.